Afternoon in northern and central parts of England and Wales, a high of 26 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Thomas Watts.
When posting on most job sites, you get candidates.
I'm the sales director.
I'm the sales director you're looking for.
But when you post on Indeed.com, you get the candidates just right for you.
I'm a sales director with an MBA, over 10 years experience, who's also fluent in Japanese.
With Indeed, you can add screener questions for a less time-consuming route to your shortlist of qualified candidates.
Arigato.
Hiring's better when you've got your shortlist. Save time on hiring when you post a job on Indeed. Get started today at Indeed.com.
LBC travel. The North Circular Road is closed both ways between a Hanger Lane gyrator and Queen's Drive in Ealing because of an accident. There are long delays both ways, but also on the surrounding areas, especially the A40 eastbound, which is slow from Hillingdon. It's taking at least half an hour to get through. There's also been an accident on the Blackfriars Bridge northbound and there are delays from the cut. The M25 very slow clockwise at junction 24 at Potters Bar after a van broke down earlier, and also anti-clockwise it's slow to junction 26 at Waltham Abbey, and that's also after a van broke down earlier. LBC Travel, I'm Joanne Webb.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
Yeah, good morning to you. It's 4 minutes after 8 on Monday, June the 11th. And later this week, much of London, actually much of the country, will probably come to a standstill as we remember 12 months on the horrific events at Grenfell Tower. Of course, one of the worst other out-of-war tragedies this country has, or peacetime tragedies this country has ever endured. And here to reflect on that, and hopefully to tell us about some progress that's been made, and I'm pleased to say making a return appearance in the studio, is the leader of Kensington and Chelsea Council, Councillor Elizabeth Campbell, who I know, Councillor, you were re-elected or put back in the job very recently, so I think I say congratulations, but it's a heck of a brief you've taken on board. Thank you for coming. We'll talk a little bit about what's planned for later this week in just a moment, but you won't be surprised that the question that probably resonates the most with my listeners is how the re-accommodation, the rehousing of the victims, the survivors, is going, and victims' families. What is the progress you've made there?
Well, I think we've made real progress over the last 6 months. So 90% of families have now accepted permanent accommodation.
And just to give my listeners, so it's 138 households, as I understood at the time of the fire, were made homeless.
Yes, there were 138 who were made homeless at the time of the fire. But, family circumstances change. Some people rightly wanted to make sure that their children had separate flats.
Well, unfortunately, I think some relationships broke down as well.
And some, I was just going to say, relationships broke down. So we have now 205 households.
205, okay.
205.
Okay, 205. And you were saying you think we're at 90% now?
90% have accepted permanent accommodation.
Ah, right. So that leads me to say they've not necessarily moved yet then?
No. So we have 82 have moved and the rest have, by and large, have completely accepted where they're going to move to. So what we've done is that
82% or 82 in number?
82 are in permanent homes.
So that's a success. 82 are now relocated and happy.
Yeah.
So in some instances, and please tell me where I've got this wrong, some people have accepted but have yet to move.
Exactly.
Why might that be?
Well, if you think about it, think about the last month. You've had commemoration hearings where they have been paying tribute to people who've died, which has been really, really searing, actually. Then this last week, you've had the beginning of the actual public inquiry. Then you've got children taking exams, you've got Ramadan ending, and you've got the first anniversary.
Ramadan ends on Thursday, doesn't it?
It ends on Thursday,
yeah.
which is the first anniversary. Yeah. So people got a lot on their mind at the moment. But we've been working with them. So with the flats that we've been buying, we've been saying to them, look, this has got to be your home. You've lost your home. It's not just giving you a property, it's a home. So if you want a different kitchen or you want a different bathroom, or we can help with this. So we're very much working with them, and when they're ready to move, we're ready to move them.
So in some instances, they've stayed in hotels rather than move to...
Yes.
So these people who go around saying, oh, these families are still stuck in hotels. No, in some instances, they've chosen, for whatever reason, Ramadan, family exams, to stay in the hotel. Yeah,
everyone's been offered temporary accommodation or service departments in some cases. But you can understand that as well, because as a community... you're a community, otherwise, and you're moving into a new place, and maybe you're moving in for the first time without your husband, or without your wife, or without a child, It's quite a big. It's quite a big ask.
Huge. What
It's
level
huge.
of counselling do you provide to these people?
Everyone's got a key worker and everyone's got a housing officer. And the key worker will be the one who'll be saying, let's go around together. What about this? What type of furniture? Actually, sorry, that would be the housing officer. But making sure that the children are all right in schools, all that sort of thing.
And if someone's in a hotel and they wake up in the middle of the night and having some horrible sort of flashback, is there some kind of number that they can ring?
No, we have someone in the hotel lobby. And the main hotels, the council has provided counsellors who sit in the lobbies through the night. Because people will...
All night long?
All night long, yeah.
Wow. And that's been happening since
That's been happening since the fire, yeah.
And so there's a counsellor sitting there in case some poor soul has a flashback.
Yeah, because also if you think about it, if you know someone's there, you might wake up in the middle of the night with sort of nightmares. But if you know that you could go down and have a hot chocolate with someone or actually talk it through, it means sometimes that you think, well, maybe I don't need to, because you know that it's there. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect. I just wonder, counsellor, it's going to be difficult taking that blanket away for some folks, isn't it? Because although they'll have their own property and they'll have their own house or maisonette or apartment, there won't be someone in the lobby to have a hot chocolate with.
No, there won't be, and that's why we have to really think about the next stage of recovery. And also things like employment, going back into employment's a big thing. Just going out of a hotel and cooking again, going shopping, getting your kids to school.
Yeah, of course.
It's quite understandable.
Massive step. Well, I'm sure we'll have more questions, but you're good to go. Yes, so let's get some questions. That's the idea. Councillor is here, of course, to take your calls and your questions. So call first is Joe in Kensington. Joe, you're through to the council leader, Councillor Campbell. Morning, Joe.
Good morning.
Yes, your questions.
Councillor Campbell, my question is about the Kensington and Chelsea's legal spend since the fire. Your internal budget for legal services is currently over £1 million a year, and you've already spent almost £5 million on external legal advice from DWF and Kennedy's Law to advise you on the police and public inquiries. Can you please tell me what this money is being spent on, and since when has it cost so much money for a council simply to tell the truth to the police and public inquiries?
Just out of interest, where did you get those figures? You don't have to tell me, Joe, but I think many of my listeners will be interested.
The figures are all on their website.
They are.
Okay. If you have a look at the budget.
Okay, no, that's great. Joe, I'm not going to cut you off. I'm just fading you down so the councillor can answer. Councillor?
Joe, you're absolutely right. We have spent a lot on legal fees, and we're doing it for a reason, because we want to make sure that we have all the documents that the courts need, and that they're all presented in a easy format for them. And let me be absolutely clear. We're a local authority. We're not in the business of defending anything. We want to be absolutely open, because we know what our residents want is the truth, because you get the truth and then it leads to justice. And we want to make sure that this never, ever, ever happens anywhere in the country again. So actually, I make no... what's the thing?
Not excuses.
No, it's not excuses, but we're absolutely right, I believe, that to be spending this money.
So no concessions. You're absolutely set on that policy.
We're set on that policy because we want to be as open as possible.
Joe?
The issue I have with the spend, councillor, is I attended your last leadership team meeting before the election, and Tasmin Shawkat was there, who's the Director of Legal Services. And she was talking about £900,000 that's being spent on a software package to do what you say, which is where it can search emails and documents and produce those that are requested. Yet she couldn't even tell me the name of this particular software package, nor exactly what it did.
She's not here to defend...
How are you...
that's a little unfair, because the person's not here to defend herself. Go on. Okay, just... If you have a... Joe, I hear the passion in your voice, and I utterly respect that. But that person's not here to defend themselves, so it's a little... Do you have a final question before I move on, Joe? Please don't take that as an...
I would say that if things like that aren't known by anyone who was on the leadership team that night, that evening, Nick, how can you say that this money is being spent wisely? It does just look like you're throwing good money after bad.
Councillor?
I can answer that, Joe, because we have so many documents. We have more than 1 million documents coming. They've got to be in a format that is accessible, so either for the inquiry or indeed for a criminal investigation. So what we said is it's right that we should spend money on having the IT to produce documents in a way that's accessible for the courts, etc., so that we do find the truth.
Final response from you, Joe.
I just find it incredibly difficult to believe that spending up £5 million per year, it would cost so much to tell the truth.
I think we must respect each other's position. Joe, thank you, and allow me to move on to the next caller, Kurt in Chelsea. Kurt, you're on the radio. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Nick. First-time caller, avid listener.
Thank you so much, Kurt. You're through to the council. Go ahead.
Elizabeth Campbell.
Yes.
Do you think that the council are to blame for the Grenfell?
I have no idea to what extent the council is to blame for Grenfell, and that's why, as actually I just said to the previous caller, what we can, the only thing we can do is open ourselves out and give everyone show them all the documentations, and then it's really for the judge to decide where to apportion blame. Our job is to be open and non-defensive.
I think it's fair to say, Kurt, at this point, nobody actually knows really the full circumstances, and that is why it's being watched so keenly.
Yeah.
An observation from you on that, Kurt?
Well, you, Elizabeth, you were part of the cabinet, no?
I wasn't on the cabinet at the time, but I had been part of the cabinet prior to that, yes.
I sense, Kurt, this is a conversation, and thanks for being a first-time caller, I sense this is perhaps one we'll put back for when we next have the council in after we hear from the Sir Martin Moorbeck inquiry, because that is really what is tasked with getting to who did what, who shouldn't have done what, who might have done what, whether the fire brigade should have done this, whether the local authority should have done this, when the TMO, and then we'll probably be in a better set place. Kurt, thank you. It's 8:15. Let's go to another caller. Tiago in Kensington. You're on the radio. Tiago, obviously in the area, I imagine. You're on the radio. Good morning, Tiago.
Hi, Nick. I'm also a survivor from Grenfell Tower,
yes.
And I have a question for the councillor. So last week, Channel 4 News and The Guardian released emails between the former head of the council and the former MP. In them, they refer to my community as having a lack of education, language barriers, and we were all referred to as gangs. Do you feel those attitudes towards the residents contributed to the council's catastrophic lack of response in the days, weeks and months after the fire?
And this is from Channel 4. This is, I have to say, this is, of course, the outgoing leader of the council, Nick Paget-Brown, sent advice from an individual reporting on the ground. Communication is poor. The expectation the community, will know how to find help in comparison to the type of people we're trying to help is the real gulf. It goes on, these are separate local communities, rather like gangs. They don't go into another's territory. We need to understand the makeup of the area. Councillor.
I have to say that I don't agree with any of those views. I think that people, survivors and bereaved, have sometimes been portrayed wrongly by the press and other people. In my experience, Tiago, I would say that people in the tower, decent, hard-working people who are architects, accountants, chemical engineers, porters at hospitals, many people had 3 or 4 jobs. I don't accept that. But I'd have to say that I didn't say those words, and you have to ask.
Well, who was the individual reporting from the on the ground?
I don't. Do you have a?
No, I don't. I just have Nick Paget-Brown was sent advice from an individual reporting on the ground who talked about communication is very poor.
I think I've already apologised. We had lots of staff on the ground, so social workers, people like that. But I think, and I've already said that actually we apologise that the leadership of the council, we didn't cope as well as we could have at the time, given that there was this enormous national disaster on our doorstep.
But do you recognise the idea that they're like gangs?
No, I don't.
Okay, not very good language. You, Tiago? Tiago, you're back on? I think we've lost Tiago. Tiago, last chance? Gone. We move. Not helpful language, councillor, referring to these people as gangs.
Not true.
So this individual, assuming she works for the local authority, has she been spoken with, who filed this report talking about gangs?
I'm not sure.
Right.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether they actually work for the council or not. But
I see. So it might be from one of the charity organisations.
No, it could be from any individual. But all I can say is what they've said, I don't agree with. I think is completely wrong. And actually, if you look at the council now, we're a completely different council than we were.
But something that put the council in such a bad light. I appreciate you weren't leader at the time, but you are subsequently leader. wouldn't you want to say, well, I want to know who that was? Whether they're from a charity, whether they work for the local
I think
authority.
we need to look at who it was, absolutely.
So we need to know who referred to these folk as gangs, don't we?
Yes.
But we did know this a few weeks ago, didn't we? So we should perhaps have really found out who she was earlier than this. I think we've got Tiago back. Tiago, final point?
Yes. Well, the thing is, I do feel like the last part of my question wasn't actually answered.
Oh, sorry, okay.
I do feel like there was a catastrophic lack of response the days after the fire, as well as the weeks and months.
Okay.
I think the council leader did apologise. She said that they didn't behave as as they might.
Of course. So right now you were talking about who potentially could have been the person who was giving out this advice to the councillor.
Yes.
It was actually the former MP, Victoria Borwick. It's been confirmed by the Daily Mail. Daily Mail came out with the story.
Right.
And
I don't have that. I don't. Okay. Well, if that is the case, you have read that in the paper, have you?
Yes, Daily Mail.
All right. I'm grateful. If that is the advice from the former MP, how would you respond to that, councillor?
I think she needs to answer for herself.
Okay. We perhaps need to see if we can get hold of the former MP to see if they would like to talk with Tiago. Thank you. Melvin's in Ladbroke Grove. Not surprising, really. You're getting a lot of calls from there. Melvin, you're on the radio. Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. I grew up on Lancaster West Estate,
right,
facing the tower from the age of birth till 31, so hugely affected by this, and I've spoken to Councillor Campbell in person quite a few times. My question is about the Kensington and Chelsea TMO, who, as we know, were the landlords of Grenfell Tower and have had a record of not really dealing with residents properly. And we know that they've technically been disbanded and control's been reverted back to the council. But what's actually changed? How are they going to deal with residents now? I'm still a resident of that block, essentially. But what's actually changed other than the name?
Good morning, Melvin. Yes, we have met several times. I think that you'll find things are changing on the ground, will change quite quickly. So the first thing we've done is to go out and do an audit of all the backlog of repairs. I think there are over 4,000 repairs which need to be sorted, so they're going to be working through that. There's a whole thing about fire safety, and we'll be replacing all the fire doors on all the estates. We're checking everything. And then also, of course, we're looking forward. If you're on Lancaster West Estate, you would have been part of the thing with architects to see how we can improve the estate. Because I think now we need to really also look to the future and really think about how we can make this a better place and that people have better opportunities.
How long will it take then for all the doors to be replaced? What is the time?
I think it's over the next 2 years.
It takes that long to replace the doors?
Well, you have to buy them to start with, and then you've got to double check all the regulations to make sure that what you're putting in is absolutely fine. And it's just a rolling programme.
And what about the cladding that are on some of the other apartment blocks there? Has that all been tested?
We don't have any other buildings with cladding. I think it's everywhere else in the country who has that problem.
Melvin, coming back to you for a quick response. Melvin?
Yeah, we are starting to see some of that happening, but I would also like to ask, or just in response, is what's the, response time? Have they been improved? Because, one of the main complaints about the TMO in their previous inception was they just took far too long to do things. So do you know, or can you say that response times have actually improved?
I can't hand on heart this morning just say response times improved, because I know that there's this huge backlog, but I equally know that we've got a really good director who's come in to run the TMO, and that they are there on the ground, and certainly where you are in Baseland Studios, you probably get a much quicker response time. So we know that that's what people want, and we're absolutely getting on with that.
All right, thank you for that. More calls in a moment. I've mentioned that later this week it is, of course, 12 months since the tragedy. What is planned for Thursday? Anything in particular? There's
a lot of things that the community are planning, and as a council, what we're trying to do is just to support them in any way we can. So there are various community events, but on the whole, people want to keep it quite quiet and quite personal.
What will you be doing?
As a council, we're going to have a small, service is the wrong word, a small gathering, because we had a lot of officers on the ground, a lot of key workers who know the families well, a lot of housing officers dealing with people. So we will be marking that 12 noon thinking of the survivors and the bereaved.
And I understand you or one of your colleagues, or possibly you, attended all the days in which the victims' families talked right at the start of the inquiry and sort of gave some of the personal backgrounds of some of the stories of those who were lost. How gruelling was that for you? How gruelling was it for the families?
I think the family, yes, you're right, I was there every day. I think it was amazingly courageous, amazingly brave of families to make those commemorations. It was unbelievably moving, and I think it's fair to say that it's actually seared on my soul, most of those stories, and that's right. So whenever we talk about housing, or we talk about the inquiry, or talk about cladding, I think our first and our last thoughts have to be with those people. And of course we're dealing with the people who've left behind, but this was an occasion for us to understand who they'd lost, because I didn't know the people they'd lost. So.
And the Americans talk about something called closure. Do you think it helped the families move towards a stage of closure?
I think it was very important for them to bear witness. Closure, I don't know. I don't know whether...
Probably have to ask them.
You have to ask them. And grief comes in waves, and I think this week's going to be particularly difficult for people.
Arnie's in Felton. Back to the calls. Arnie, what's your question of the councillor? Good morning.
Good morning. My question is, all tower blocks, when they were first built, they had a concierge, which was controlled by CCTV, and they had all monitors and screens, and they were linked to all the tenants and floors for security and safety. Why didn't they have the concierge? Was there a concierge, and was it abolished because they wanted to save money? I did a caretaking job in Brentford Towers with a concierge, and there was a concierge which was linked to every aspect of health and safety.
All right. Was there a concierge position in Grenfell Tower?
Arnie, I don't believe there was, actually. I don't think so.
Right. What do you think the concierge would have brought about, Arnie?
Concierge controls everything. Security doors,
yes.
Stairs, it monitors everything. And the caretaker is on site 24/7.
I know, but he or she couldn't stop a fire breaking out, could he or she?
Yeah, but the information or the alarm would have been sounded as soon as the minutes after the fire started.
Okay. I mean, I think we've seen the response time, as I recall from what we've heard so far, both the tenant who first noticed the fire and the response of the London Fire Brigade, it all seems to be up to what are the accepted guidelines to which we all work. Is that fair, isn't it, Councillor?
I think that's fair. And I think that the inquiry will be looking at the response of the Fire Brigade the same way as they're looking at what we've done too.
We're staying in the area. Bill in Ladbroke Grove. Bill, you're on the radio. You're through to the council. Go ahead, Bill.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. First and foremost, there's a lot of people saying how much they care and how they're really looking after the people of Ladbroke Grove. But I think it's the children you really need to take into consideration here. I mean, they're talking about putting the children back underneath that tower while all that asbestos dust is still floating in the air. And also...
Sorry, when you say, do you mean in a school, when you say putting them under...
In a school, directly underneath.
Right.
They're going to put them straight back in there before they even take the tower down.
Right.
So when the building goes down, all the dust, the asbestos, that place was riddled with it. It says
hang on, okay, don't go. I just want to work our way through some of this. Is there asbestos in the tower?
Gosh, you got me there. I genuinely don't know the answer to that.
Built in
1975, so
I don't know what the building regulations were, but
the site, the tower, and the site is being looked after by a separate team, not by the council. So that's why I don't have the information on that.
Is there school? The school that was there, is it currently being used, or is it?
No, Kensington Aldridge Academy, so it's a big secondary school, have moved about a mile away.
Right.
And they're all doing their exams there as we speak.
Okay, well, good luck to the children there. Bill says they're being moved back into that school, is that correct?
I think the school is an academy, and I think the governing body is due to decide whether it's ready to move back in September or whether they want to leave it a bit later.
So you don't have any control over that, or can
I don't have any control over that.
So that would be to their decision, but presumably they would need to talk with your officers to find out what is the plan for the tower.
As I said, the tower and the site is not under our aegis at all. I believe that they've put the scaffolding up.
Yes, I saw.
And it's a special kind of scaffolding, special kind of wrap. So I believe what they are going to do is to take down the building within that current
to
structure.
try and keep whatever dust and goodness.
But I would say that, I mean, I'm sure if they do that, they'll consult with Public Health England to make sure all the
you
dust,
wouldn't want
the noise.
children, I would have thought, around in a school as the building is being demolished from within this scaffolding structure.
Well, I suppose from the school's point of view, it's for the headmaster to decide, what the effect on the education and the health and well-being of the children being on a separate site or being back in the school.
Right. Quick response from you, Bill?
Well, they've actually, before you even say that, they've actually already moved the sixth formers back into that building.
Oh, okay.
They are sneaking the children. Yes, definitely.
Hang on, all right. Let's use the word like sneaking. I doubt that they would sneak a group of school children, having had experience of school children.
Okay. Sorry, but they haven't informed the people, the parents yet, that they are gradually taking the children class by class back to the school.
Then, Bill, what we're going to do is, I'm really grateful. We need to take this up with the Academy because, in fairness, although there are many areas that are under the council leader's jurisdiction, this one, if the Academy has chosen to do this, that's something we need to take up with the Academy, and we'll put a call into them straight. Bill, I'm very, very grateful. I'm only finishing because I've only got 1 minute left, and I want to try and get one last call in, which is I'm so sorry, Honey in North Kensington. Honey, you're on the radio. What are you going to say? Good morning.
Hi, just going back to what I think it was Arnie from Feltham said about the concierge service. The councillor said no, there wasn't. Yes, there was. For over 20 years, there was a concierge service in Grenfell Tower.
Was there on the night, though, Honey?
Not on the night, but previously he said that there was always a concierge service.
Yeah, but I just have to say the council was asked whether whether anyone was present that night, Honey. So.
Oh, okay. Well, this just goes back to what I was originally going to ask the councillor. Anyway, her previous job role, am I right in thinking it was to do with social care within Chelsea and Kensington?
Yeah, it was Family and Children's Services.
Family and Children's Services. Now, you made a comment that you had never been inside a tower block before, and you'd never been inside Grenfell Tower. Now, Family and Children's Services were based on the second floor of Grenfell Tower for over 15 years. So how did you never visit an office that you were in charge of?
I remember this. You subsequently clarified it back to the council.
I think that's a fair question. When I was asked the question, I said, had I been up to the top? In fact, you're quite right. I hadn't been up at the top. I answered it absolutely honestly. Yes, of course we had things in tower blocks. In Chelsea we had a children's home on the Wellington estate. We had another youth club at the base of Trellick Tower. We had
so you
a nursery
had been into tower blocks.
Yeah, but they said, had I been up to the top of a tower block?
And had you visited Grenfell prior to the fire?
Grenfell I hadn't, but a lot of the other places I had. Yeah.
Right. So I think her point was if it was on the second floor, I think Honey's surprised you hadn't been up there.
No. On second floors, I've been to loads of places.
Right.
Yes.
So you had been to the second floor in Grenfell, just to clarify.
Not in Grenfell.
Right.
I hadn't been to. I think there's a nursery in Grenfell. I hadn't been to that one nursery.
I see.
I've been to several other places.
And you've been up tower blocks.
Yeah,
okay,
sure.
Honey. Hopefully we've got to the bottom of that. We know, of course, that the Prime Minister's taken this very personally and has driven on this. How many conversations have you had with the Prime Minister, Councillor?
I had one brief one about the TMO in last autumn.
Last autumn. So the Prime Minister's not been in touch since last autumn?
Well, actually, very kindly, she left me a message on my mobile wishing me well in the election. And to be fair, ministers, I saw 3 ministers last week.
Right.
The government's given us quite a lot of funding. We're going to be working with them hand in glove about the Grenfell recovery going forwards.
Right.
A lot of their civil servants have been embedded with ours. They've been very much part of a partnership.
So you're getting the level of support you need?
Yes, but, we always want more, right, for our residents.
And just a word on the local elections. There was concern, of course, that yours might have been one of the boroughs that could have been taken by a believed to be resurgent Labour Party. It didn't happen. Why was that, do you suppose?
I think because over the years we have provided good services. And I think our residents recognise that. And in some areas we've got to improve. And Grenfell is one tragic example of that. And I think we've said that we were going to change.
Yes.
And we've changed.
And coming back to central government, they are that when you want, the money is there, as and when you want help or you want assistance, they are providing as much support as they can.
They have provided us with support, and we will definitely be asking for more money and more support for the recovery.
Are they withholding some of the money?
Well, I think, to be fair, it's not a question of withholding it, but if they're committed, for example, they've given us £15 million towards Lancaster West Estate, we can't ask them for the money before we've actually used it.
Right. So they are in listening mode, as they say.
So I'm sure they're in listening mode, because I'm sure that they understand that this is just a lightning rod, isn't it, of how we all behave.
It is. It's good to see you again. Thank you very much for coming. I look forward to seeing you again in the studio, and good luck to you and your colleagues. And, of course, when you pause on Thursday, all the teams that have been working with you, that's another hurdle, not just for you, but, of course, all the residents to overcome as well. I think much of the country, certainly this city, will be thinking about you. Councillor Elizabeth Campbell, thank you for being here on LBC, where news is next.
US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says Donald Trump is well prepared for the historic summit with North Korea in Singapore. Mr. Trump says there's excitement in the air after he and Kim Jong-un arrived in the city-state over the weekend. The leader of Kensington and